Welcome to Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Your Day Weather Podcast is being brought to you by WYDOT and Cowboy State Daily. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com. And remember, if there's ice and snow, take it slow. As we go through this Tuesday, well, for those of you along and west of the divide, you're going to see clouds and the Pacific system beginning to produce some shower activity from the Pacific Northwest and Northern California through the Northern Great Basin to western areas of Montana and Wyoming and Utah and Colorado. You're going to see some showers developing, and it's also going to get windy. It's also going to be windy, and it'll still be warm for front range areas east of the mountains, high clouds, wind, and mild temperatures. We will have some strong and gusty winds along I-25 and Interstate 80, so travelers keep that in mind. Then as the Pacific trough settles in, colder weather coming Wednesday through Saturday. The mountains are going to see some snow. We're going to see a smattering of showers on the plains along with those colder temperatures. The best way to describe the weather Wednesday through Saturday is blah. It's just not going to be nice. It's going to be windy. It's going to be colder, and these showers and clouds will be around. And I hate to say this, nobody wants to hear this, but the longer term pattern over the next 2 weeks, basically through the rest of April, is colder than average for most of the lower 48 states, especially the central, the northern plains, and the west. Yes, we'll have the occasional mild day, but it's still just trending a lot like it has since the beginning of the winter season, colder than average. As that warm up, you remember that really warm weather we had a week ago? Not going to see that for a while. Also, a quick El Nino update, and I am going to do more tomorrow on what does the changing Pacific mean with El Nino coming. What does that mean weather-wise in long-term climate trends as we go into the next 12 to 24 months? I'll give you a little snapshot today, but more details coming on that tomorrow. Got to show you this picture. This ended up on Twitter yesterday. How's this for a shot? This is in the mountains in Alta, Utah, from the Snow Hydro Lab. That is a person down there at the bottom, and that pole is a 9-meter pole to help measure snow. So we're talking 14 feet plus, and that's compacted snow. That is not powdery snow. That's how much snow is sitting in the mountains of Utah. Just an incredible shot there. And keep in mind, we are now 18 days into April, and there is a lot of snow to melt out. I mean, we haven't even really started the runoff. Those warm temperatures last week did send some water down and melted some snow, but up high, these colder temperatures and the return of the colder temperatures is going to really keep that snowpack from melting too quickly, which is good, but you just wonder what's coming when it decides to really warm up later on. And you can see that all that blue there, especially the dark blue, showing where the snowpack levels are still very, very high. And these numbers, even if there's not a lot of new snow, are going to go up with the temperatures staying colder, because relative to the date and with the coolness returning, the snowpack levels are still going to be relative to the 30-year average higher, even as we get later in the season, just because there's still a lot of snow sitting up there. And here's some of those reasons why the Pacific is continuing to churn out storms. We got a swirl of clouds here, got a swirl of clouds up here, another little low up here, and you can see all the high and mid-level clouds moving in. The main system is back here, but we're already seeing the trough bring clouds and showers into areas west of the divide. You can see this big elongated area of low pressure out in the Gulf of Alaska just spitting out and pushing cold weather in. So this is by noon today. You can see that the western half of Wyoming into these areas here, starting to feel effects of the trough pushing on in, and the frontal system. These are the temperature anomalies by 6 p.m. today. You can see along and east of the divide, there's a nice wedge of warmer weather there, Chinooking winds coming off the mountains, but look at the cold settling into the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Great Basin and areas along and west of the divide. This is by noon tomorrow. So you can see it's not a quick moving front, but the colder air is settling in, the warmer air getting pushed out into the plains, and then eventually, this is by 6 p.m. tomorrow, the frontal system is going to be pushing on through with a strong low right along the U.S.-Canadian border. This remains this big piece of cold, moist air up in the Gulf of Alaska, so this will continue to sit up there for a little bit longer. wind is going to be developing. These are the wind gusts between now and Friday morning. So you can see the large area of dark green and then the areas of yellow and orange. So very windy across the Great Basin, across the Rockies as this trough approaches. So the wind is going to be picking up. Nothing that's terrible, nothing like we had last April, that's for sure. But it is going to get kind of windy and colder. That's why the word blah is a good way to describe what's coming. This is the precipitation forecast through Friday 6 p.m. So you can see that heavier moisture up into Montana, western areas and eastern areas of the Dakotas, southern areas of Canada, then back to the Pacific Northwest, and then this patch of showers in the southern area that will be developing. Basically, it's as we said yesterday, quite similar to kind of what happened with last week's trough coming on in, with the heavier moisture favoring those northern areas. And then look at the snowfall. The snow just keeps coming and falling at some pretty low elevations for pretty deep into the year. Look at this. I mean, folks up there just want it to stop, but Mother Nature has other ideas. Now, this is going out 10 days from now. This is why we're just not very encouraged that there's a lot of spring coming. Now, we do see a little bit of a change up here with high pressure in the Gulf of Alaska and up here building, but what that does in turn is cause a trough to form in the central United States. So what happens is the door opens, the colder air from the northern latitudes coming in by mid to late next week. So this is not a warm signal whatsoever over the next 7 to 10 days. And these are the temperature anomalies by next Thursday. So you can see how cold most of the nation is as that trough settles on in. So spring kind of going back on hold again. The sea surface temperature anomalies have really changed out in the Pacific Ocean. The typical area that we've been showing, those colder than average sea surface temperatures, is just gone. Now we do have these cold water temperatures here along the west coast. A lot of this is just due to how cold it's been this winter and all the precipitation that has fallen along the western areas of the United States this year. But this is an area of interest. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. But the key area right here is where the El Nino and the La Ninas like to form and to be, in that very energetic zone of the globe, in these subtropical waters in the Pacific. Well, we've seen the La Nina go away. There's no hint of it now. It is completely gone. And the latest projection with the computer modeling of trying to predict what the sea surface temperatures are going to do, which is always a tricky proposition. But look, the last update had about a 60 or so % chance of an El Nino forming by late this summer and fall into next year. Well, that's now skyrocketed to better than 75 to greater than 80% now. So you can see there has been a big change in terms of at least the probabilities of an El Nino forming. And I think it's a foregone conclusion that El Nino is coming. We're not in an El Nino yet. This is something that's important to tell you, and I'll tell you why that's important tomorrow when we talk about El Nino a bit more. Have yourself a very good Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow.